neighbors one day told me, you can't do an Ironman. Someone told me I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, I'm going to prove that person wrong. You're doing an Ironman. These aren't easy. These are hard. Not many people are able to do an Ironman. So if you're going to be doing this, buckle up, get ready for the training. I'm telling you this, decide ahead of time if you really want to do this. This is probably the biggest part of all this. I'm Rob Tatro, and in the last 2 years, I did 4 Ironman. What I'm going to talk to you about today is what to expect in your first training lead up to your Ironman. So you're leading up to your Ironman, you're getting ready to train for that first Ironman that you're going to do, what to expect, hours, preparation, things to watch for, how to get ready for that big race, how to get motivated, hyped, not too hyped, how to taper, how to build up, where to have your long jogs, your long bikes. I'm going to cover all that in this video. First off, the first step should be a self-assessment where you are as an athlete. So I was a 4-hour marathoner when I decided I was going to do an Ironman. I had about a 6-month lead up. So 4-hour Ironmaner, 6-month lead up. That was a little aggressive, but I'm that kind of guy. I just wanted to do it. And I wanted to do it because one of my neighbors one day told me, you can't do an Ironman. Someone told me I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, I'm going to prove that person wrong. So I wanted to do an Ironman. I had just broken a 4-hour marathon. I was training a lot for that marathon. So I thought, what's a little bit more training, and let's prep and train for an Ironman. So first thing I did was a self-assessment. Am I good at biking? Am I good at running? Am I good at swimming? I had not really swam distances ever in my life. So I knew I needed to do some work there. I didn't own a bike, and I never biked ever competitively at any distance ever. I didn't own a wetsuit. I knew how to run. I knew how to run a 4-hour marathon. So self-assessment. I hired a coach. I would highly recommend you hire a coach. You could probably find one for less than $200 a month. It's a small investment when you consider what you're going to be doing over the next 6 months. I would hire a coach if I were you. For me, it was the absolute best thing that ever happened because I got to bounce ideas off that person, have my entire planning done for me. But I would suggest hiring a coach. If you don't have a coach, that's okay. You can do it on your own if you want to do it on a budget. So first off, figure out your timeline. So I had 6 months, but really I had about 5 months by the time I hired my coach and I was ready to go. So a 20-week build for Ironman. For my first Ironman, that's a little aggressive. Some might consider you want more like an 8-month build or a 12-month build, but it's certainly doable. I was overweight still. I probably still weighed 210 pounds or something. I was about 25 pounds overweight, but I thought I could do it. That build to Ironman is going to look a little something like this. So most of your weeks are going to look like this. For me, I was a 1 swim a week kind of guy, but I know most plans out there suggest 2 swims. So your 2 swims could be like Tuesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. You're going to have a long bike on the weekend. For me, that was on Saturday. My long bike starts at like 2 hours and it'll build up all the way to 5.5 or 6 hours. You're going to do your brick run. Brick is an acronym for bike run in combination. So your bike, then you run. So you get off the 5-hour bike, you get right on your shoes and you go running. I would do it all on my treadmill and in my basement. I don't advise you to do that. I advise you to train outside if you can. But for me, my race was in early June, and my training in a cold city in Canada was only possible in my basement. Bike as much as you can outside, run as much as you can outside. You're going to be doing long bikes on the Saturday, and that's going to build up all the way up to 5.5 or 6 hours, followed by an hour run. Every time you do a long bike, that should be followed by an hour run. And then your Sunday is going to be your long run. You're going to be doing at the max, probably 9-ish hours on the weekend. So 6-7 hours plus 2 or 3 hours on your long run. So you do a long bike on the Saturday, long run on the Sunday. The long run will start at maybe an hour and a half and will build up all the way up to about 3 hours. So that's the level of commitment you should be willing to do for your Ironman. That's every weekend. And then during the week, you're going to build up. So it's not a ton of mileage or a ton of time during the week. It's usually about an hour. I would do long Wednesdays. So over time, my Wednesdays built over time for a long bike on the Wednesdays. 1 to 2 swims, 1 to 2 bikes, 2 to 3 runs. So something like, I was doing 7 days a week training. I would recommend you do the same. Or if you're having an off day, maybe a walk or some cross training of some sort, perhaps strength or hockey or a sport that you like to play. But it's going to have to take 7 days a week of activity, at least 6. With perhaps 1 off day that's either cross training or another sport. You're doing an Ironman. These aren't easy. These are hard. Not many people are able to do an Ironman. So if you're going to be doing this, buckle up, get ready for the training. You do the training, the race day is going to be easy. It's going to be automatic. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be easier. So if you pay the price, you will get into the exclusive club of individuals that complete an Ironman. So I'm telling you this, decide ahead of time if you really want to do this. This is probably the biggest part of all this. It's one thing to say I'm going to do it and to lay out the plan. You have to be decided ahead of time mentally that you want to do this. It's a lot. It's a battle. Talk to your spouse. If you're married, if you have kids, is it okay if I work out 10 hours on the weekend? Now, you're not going to start at 10 hours. You're going to start much slower and it's going to build, and your peak training will only be for about 2 or 3 weeks, where you're going to be doing 10-hour weekends. Those are only for about 2 or 3 weeks. So you're going to build up that schedule. You might start with 6 hours of training, then 7, then eventually 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to, for me, my peak week was about 20 hours of training. Now, I also did strength 2 hours a week, twice a week strength, 1 swim a week, 3 bikes, 3 jogs. That's what I was doing. And obviously my Saturday was a combination of the jog and the run. So a schedule could look like this. So your long bike on the Saturday, followed by a brick run, long run on the Sunday. I would do a short run, half-hour run on Monday, followed by strength. Tuesday was my swim. Wednesday was my long bike. Thursday was short run, followed by a swim. And then Friday was typically either a combination of bike and run, or 1 to an hour and a half, a combination of bike and run, or just bike. That's what you have to be willing to do. And that's going to build up over time. Most of your jogs are going to be at slow kind of pace, because on race day, you're not going to be running 7-minute miles. It's not going to be a race. It's not going to be a marathon for you. It's going to be a survival. It's going to be a very slow. If it's your first Ironman, it's going to be slow. For me, my first Ironman ended up being like a 5.5-hour marathon. Ended up taking me just under 15 hours to complete my first Ironman. Now, it was a very hot day, 32 degrees with 95% humidity in Des Moines on a very, very, very hot day. And like 35% of the people didn't finish the race. It was a very, very tough day. I was trained, I was ready. I drank a ton of water and I got through it. But it's hard. It's going to be hard. Goals that you might want to think of for your first Ironman, you might want to consider something like 14 to 15 hours. And that's not the end of the world. Like, that's fine. There's some walking on the marathon for that. There's some easy bike miles. And it's probably a nice, easy swim. So I'm happen to be a good swimmer. But for the swim, I don't really think it matters that much in your first Ironman. You're going to want to be able to survive the swim. Whether you do an hour 15 or an hour 30 or an hour 45 is really not going to impact your time in the Ironman that much. Now, if you go out and you kill yourself on the swim and you're not able to bike, that's a problem. You want to be able to get out of the water and into bike, and you want to be able to do that comfortably. And you don't want to take 2.5 hours to do the swim either, because there are some cutoffs. I think for the swim, a goal should be a nice, comfortable pace. And I can tell you, when I did mine, hour 15, I wasn't stroking the entire time. I did a lot of breaststroke in there to rest and recover. It's okay to do an hour and a half swim. I did a 7+ hour bike. So that was like 25 kilometers an hour, which is, slow, but manageable, very reasonable pace. I wasn't in the shape I am today, but it was something that I thought I could bike kind of at a bike forever pace. So set some goals is what I would say. But the goals shouldn't really be that important, because your number one goal for your Ironman should be to finish. That should be the focus. It's going to be a long day. But if you do the training, you're going to get it done. And the cool thing about my Ironman, the coolest thing is by far the journey in getting there. That's why my brother and I called our podcast The Running Journey. It's because the journey is why we do these things. You're going to do your Ironman and you're going to finish a race and you're going to look around and you're going to go, now what? You're going to get a little bit of a dopamine crash. It's not going to be the high you thought it was going to be. But the journey is what it's all about. The journey is where you build. And every single time you do a fun workout or a long workout on the weekend, you get a dopamine release. You get a little bit of a hit, because it's the anticipation of completing that Ironman that is so special and means so much. I strongly, if you're watching this video, strongly encourage you to pick an Ironman and to do one. Pick one where, it's close by. It works with your schedule. You have a lot of time to build up for it. Pick one that's not too hard, a flat course, and just go out there and do it. Your weekends will be long. I would start really early. I'd start at like 4 a.m. on the Saturday, be back home by noon, prepared to make some sacrifices. I quit drinking for all of my builds, all of my training. I ended up quitting drinking completely, but back then I drank a lot. So, to cut drinking for 4 months was a significant thing for me. So it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. Nutrition is going to be important. Sleep is going to be important. Obviously, hydration. So there's a lot of things you're going to learn as you're biking. You're going to go out and want to buy a triathlon bike. You're going to need to own one. You can't just rent one for the race because you need to train on one. So you need to own a triathlon bike. I'd strongly encourage you. You're going to learn to harden up your undercarriage. It's going to be very difficult for you on that first day on that bike to do a half hour. You're going to get sore. You'll be like, I can never do 180 kilometers. It's going to be impossible. Trust me, it'll get easier. 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, 42 kilometer jog. You can do it. Next thing you know, I was able to do 6 hours on the bike. And you know what I did on race day? I didn't even put cream. I strongly encourage you to use cream under your undercarriage, so that removes the pain and the chafing, makes it a lot easier when you start out, but eventually you're going to build a tolerance for that pain and you're going to be able to bike for an extended duration. You're going to want an aero bike, a tri-bike. So you're going to lay down in your aero bars. You're going to learn about aerodynamics and how important it is to be in an aerodynamic position when you're biking. You're going to learn about wattage, how important it is to push out watts, and how as you train more and more, your wattage will increase. The stronger your legs are, the more you're able to put out watts. You're also going to learn about how much drag you're creating, your coefficient of drag, how much your position impacts your speed, because putting out watts is not the same as a speed. You're going to learn about swimming. You're going to learn about how the stroke is critical and how you want to reach and just be dynamic. You're going to watch videos on running after a bike, and you're going to learn that it's very hard to run a decent pace after you've been biking for 6, 7 hours. You're going to take all that information. You're going to be overwhelmed, and on race day, you're going to have all these bags and you're going to be all confused, and you're going to watch my other video on how to prepare for your Ironman so that you're a little bit more ready. You're going to be overwhelmed. It's going to be a little much. Hopefully you have family with you that can help you out. You're going to bring your bike. You're going to check it in, and then it's going to be race day. You're going to get up bright and early. You're going to put your wetsuit on that you will have probably bought just for this event. You're going to jump in the water. You're going to swim. Then you're going to bike. Then you're going to run. And at the end of it, someone will scream, "You are an Ironman." And you're going to look up and you're going to start crying like I did. That's the arrival. That's you getting to the destination. And the buildup to get there was the journey. You can do it. I strongly encourage you to do it. If you're watching this video, it's because you're ready for it. Decide if you want to commit to this. Build a training plan ahead of time and follow it. Once you start missing workouts, it means you're not ready for it. So you have to be willing to do every single workout every single day. Good luck with that, guys. I am pulling for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. And please drop me a message if and when you get there. Put it in the chat below. Put your message. I'd love to see and hear about you and your Ironman. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you in the next video.